I've been driving long haul for 11 years, done the I-80 corridor more times than I can count, through Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, all of it. You get comfortable out there, maybe too comfortable. That's probably why what happened near Elko caught me so off guard. Because I wasn't scared at first. I was just being a decent person, and I almost paid for it. It was a Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. I remember because I'd just gotten off a call with my wife wishing her a happy birthday, around 9:30 in the evening. After that, my phone went on the dash mount, the music went low, and I settled in for the long stretch through Nevada. Nothing but dark highway, sage scrub, and the occasional pair of headlights coming the other way. I was about 14 miles west of Elko when I saw her. She was standing on the shoulder, just past the exit 112 ramp. No car, no hazard lights anywhere nearby. Just a woman in a light jacket, way too light for November in Nevada, standing completely still, facing the road. My headlights caught her at the last second. I'd say she was mid-30s, dark hair. She wasn't waving, wasn't thumbing a ride, just standing there, watching traffic. I slowed down. I know you're not supposed to, but it was 9:47 at night, it was cold, and she didn't look like a threat. She looked like someone who needed help. I pulled onto the shoulder about 50 yards ahead of her and waited. She didn't run toward me. She walked, slow, deliberate, hands in her pockets. I cracked the passenger window when she got close. "You okay?" I asked. She looked up at me. Her face was completely calm, not relieved, not upset, just neutral, like she'd been expecting me specifically. "My car broke down," she said. "Back a ways." I hadn't seen a car. "How far back?" I asked. She tilted her head slightly. "A ways." Something about the way she said it made me pause. Not the words, the tone. Like she was testing a phrase she'd heard someone else use. Just slightly off. The way a person talks when they're performing normal rather than being it. "You need me to call someone?" I asked. I did not offer her a ride. Pure instinct. I don't know why, I just didn't. "I just need to get to Wells," she said. "That's about 40 miles west. My sister is there." I told her I could call Highway Patrol. She said she didn't want that. I asked why. She just looked at me, quiet for a long moment. And then she said, "You smell like coffee. Can I have some?" I want to explain why that was wrong. It wasn't just the question, it was the sequence. The total absence of normal human panic. Someone stranded in the cold at night on a Nevada highway doesn't smell your coffee and ask for some. They ask for help. They're scared or relieved or both. This woman was neither. She was just watching me with these flat, patient eyes, and I realized I had no idea how long she'd been standing out there, or why she hadn't flagged down anyone before me. I told her I was sorry. I couldn't give her a ride, but I'd call for help. Her expression didn't change. "Okay," she said. She stepped back from the truck. I rolled up the window and pulled back onto the highway. I called Nevada Highway Patrol, gave them my location and a description. The dispatcher said they'd send someone out. I want to say that was the end of it. But about 20 minutes later, doing around 68 miles per hour westbound, I glanced in my driver's side mirror and noticed headlights about a quarter mile back. Not unusual. But over the next 10 minutes, I realized they weren't getting closer or falling further behind. They were matching my speed exactly. I sped up to 75. They sped up. I dropped to 60. They dropped. I called my wife, just to have someone on the line. I pulled off at a well-lit truck stop just west of Carlin. The headlights passed the exit without slowing. An older model sedan, dark-colored. I couldn't see the driver. I sat in that truck stop parking lot for 2 hours, drank bad coffee, talked to another driver, guy named Philip from Reno, been doing this route for 20 years. I told him what happened. He didn't laugh. He didn't look surprised either. He said, "You did right not letting her in." He didn't explain why, and I didn't ask. Some things out on that highway I've come to understand. You just accept and move past. When I finally pulled back onto the highway around 1 a.m., I drove straight through to Winnemucca without stopping. I never saw those headlights again. Highway Patrol called me back the next morning. They said they'd checked the area around exit 112. No broken down vehicle. No woman matching my description. Nobody. Nothing. I don't know who she was or what she wanted. But I think about the way she said, "You smell like coffee." So casual, so close to my window. And I know that if I had unlocked that door, something very bad would have happened that night. I don't know what. I just know, and that's enough for me. Story 2, Lot 7. Most truckers will tell you that the scariest part of this job isn't the road, it's the waiting, the layovers, the rest breaks, those long dead hours in a parking lot at 3 in the morning, when the truck is off and it's quiet, and you're just lying in your bunk listening to the world outside. That's when things get weird. That's when you realize how alone you actually are out there. I had a delivery to a distribution center in Wilmer, Texas, just south of Dallas. I got in early, too early to unload, so dispatch told me to rest and come back at first light. I pulled into the Petro Travel Center on I-45 in Hutchins around 11 p.m. on March 4th, 2025. Big lot, decent lighting in the main area. I pulled into Lot 7, which is the overflow section around the back. A little darker, a little more removed from everything. I'd stayed there a dozen times, never had a single problem. I made a sandwich, watched something on my tablet, and was asleep by midnight. I woke up at 2:13 in the morning. No specific reason. Just that instinct that something had shifted. The way you sometimes wake up and know the air in the room is different before you can say why. I lay there in the dark for a moment, just listening. Wind against the cab, distant highway noise from the interstate. And then, tapping. Very light, very slow, like one finger tapping on metal. Coming from the passenger side of the cab, low, near the step. I told myself it was debris, a branch or something blowing against the truck. I closed my eyes. Then it came again. 3 taps, pause. 3 taps, pause. Too even, too deliberate. I sat up slow and looked through the small gap in the curtain behind the passenger seat. I couldn't see much. The parking lot lights barely reached back there. I grabbed my flashlight, I keep one in the bunk, always, clicked it on, and angled it toward the passenger window. There was a man standing next to my truck. He was pressed up against the passenger door, which is why I'd almost missed him. An older guy, maybe 60 years old, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. He wasn't looking up at the window. He was looking down, doing something with his hands near the door handle. My heart rate went from 0 to about 200 in 2 seconds flat. I slammed my hand on the horn, short burst, enough to startle anyone. He looked up. And here's the thing that still gets to me. He didn't run. He stepped back, just one step, and looked directly at my window. He could see the flashlight beam. He knew I was in there and awake, and he just stood there, looking up at me, completely still, completely calm. I grabbed my phone and called 911, told them my location, told them there was someone trying to get into my truck. While I was on the call, I kept watching him. He didn't move for almost a full minute. Then he turned and walked, not ran, walked, toward the back of the lot, into the darker section beyond the reach of the lights. And the darkness just swallowed him whole. I did not take my eyes off the spot where he'd disappeared. Hutchins PD showed up in about 9 minutes, 2 officers. They walked the lot, checked around the other trucks, went around the back of the building. They came back and said they hadn't found anyone. One of the officers asked, real casual, if I was sure I hadn't been dreaming. I showed him my call log, 2:17 a.m., and then I showed him the scratch on the door handle, fresh metal showing through the chrome, bright silver against the dull finish, that had not been there when I'd parked. He took a report. I moved the truck to a spot right under a light in the main lot and didn't sleep again until the sun came up. What I keep coming back to is this. He wasn't startled. When I hit that horn, a normal person, someone who'd accidentally bumped my truck, or even a thief who knew they were caught, would have run, or at minimum flinched. This man took one step back and looked at me like I was a minor inconvenience he was accounting for. Calm, patient, like he'd done this before, like he knew the layout of this situation better than I did and was simply adjusting his plan. I found out later, talking to a driver who runs that Dallas corridor regularly, that there'd been 2 other trucks broken into in that exact lot in the previous 4 months. No arrests. Nobody had ever gotten a good look at who did it. I don't know for certain what he wanted. Maybe he was just a thief. Probably he was, but the way he looked up at me through that window, No panic, no guilt, just nothing. Makes me think that whatever he was looking for in those trucks in the middle of the night, it wasn't only cargo, and I'm real glad I didn't open that door to find out. Story 3. The house off mile marker 39. I want to be clear that I'm not someone who scares easily. 15 years on the road. I've handled breakdowns in whiteouts, near misses on black ice, a blowout on a mountain pass in the middle of the night. I've been through enough out there that most things don't rattle me. But what happened to me on US 2 outside Bonners Ferry, Idaho, in January of this year, is something I haven't fully made peace with. I'm sharing it because I think I need to say it out loud. And because I think if you run that route, you should know. January 8th, 2026. I was running a load up toward the Canadian border, crossing at the Port Hill port of entry. US 2 through northern Idaho in January is no joke. It's dark, it's icy, and the stretches between towns go long with no services, no people, nothing but tree line and black sky. I was about 6 miles south of Bonners Ferry, right around mile marker 39, when my low air pressure warning light came on. Not an emergency, but something I needed to deal with. I pulled off onto a wide gravel shoulder and climbed out to check the tires. It was around 10:40 at night. Cold, I'd say around 18 degrees. The sky was clear though, so there was good moonlight, which helped. I walked the trailer, found a slow leak on the rear driver's side. Not bad enough to strand me, but I'd need to nurse it into town. I was standing at the back of the trailer making a note on my phone when I noticed the house. It was set back maybe 200 feet from the road, back through the trees. Single story, older construction. One window in the front was lit up, warm yellow light, like a lamp inside. I hadn't noticed it when I pulled over. I stood there looking at it for a moment, and something just felt off. Not obviously wrong, just the specific stillness of it. No vehicles in the driveway, no movement behind the window, no sign of life other than that one light glowing through the trees. Then the light went off, just like that. 1 second it was there, and the next it wasn't. Total darkness. I stood there, and then, maybe 30 seconds later, it came back on. I know what you're thinking. People turn lights off and on, of course they do. But the timing of it, the way it went dark right around the moment I was standing there visible in the moonlight, and then came back, made the hair on my arm stand up in a way I can't fully rationalize. I went back to the cab to call my fleet manager about the tire. While I was on the phone, I watched the house through the windshield. The window stayed lit, and then I saw the front door open. No one came out immediately. The door just swung inward slowly, and the doorway behind it was completely dark. I sat there watching it. 20 seconds, 30, and then a person stepped out onto the small front porch. They stood there without moving. I couldn't make out any features from that distance, just a shape, a silhouette. Standing still on that dark porch, facing the road, facing my direction. My fleet manager was still talking in my ear. I interrupted him, said I'd call back. The figure on the porch didn't move. I reached over and turned off my cab light so I'd be harder to see from outside. But my hazard lights were still going, orange flashes every couple of seconds, lighting up the front of my truck like a signal. I sat there watching them. They stood there watching me. A full 2 minutes passed like that. Then they turned and went back inside. The door didn't close all the way behind them. It stayed slightly open, just that thin edge of it visible, dark inside. I made a decision. The tire wasn't bad enough to be dangerous. Bonners Ferry was 6 miles. I pulled back onto the road and drove. Here's the part that I can't explain, and I'm not going to try to. When I got into town and pulled into a gas station to sort out the tire, I called my wife to decompress. While I was talking to her, a truck pulled in behind me. Old pickup, dark colored. It sat there idling. I didn't think much of it at first. It was a gas station, people pull in. When I got off the call about 10 minutes later, the pickup was still there, engine still running. Nobody had gotten out. I watched it in my mirrors. The driver's window was down despite it being 18 degrees outside, and I could just barely make out someone sitting in there. Not doing anything, just sitting, facing forward, toward my truck. I went inside and told the attendant, young guy, couldn't have been more than 20, that there was a truck sitting behind me that hadn't moved in a while. He looked out the window, squinted, then told me the pickup was gone. I looked. He was right. I hadn't heard it leave. I hadn't seen the headlights pull out. It was just gone. The attendant said, kind of quiet, "That truck's been coming around here at night. Nobody knows who it is. They don't buy anything. They just sit for a while and then they leave." I asked if anyone had reported it. He said yes, more than once. Sheriff had looked into it, never caught up with them. I got my tire patched and was across the border before midnight. I've run that route 2 more times since then, and each time I look for that house. I've found what I'm pretty sure is the same gravel shoulder, same bend in the road, same tree line, same general stretch near mile marker 39. I stop and I look back through the trees, but I can't find the house. No structure, no driveway, no clearing, nothing but trees and darkness. I pulled up satellite maps when I got home, went over that whole stretch carefully. There is no house back there. There has never been a house back there. Not on any map, not in any record I could find. I don't know what to do with that. I'm not a person who believes in things I can't explain. I believe in what I can see and touch. And I know what I saw that night. I know the attendant in Bonner's Ferry was telling the truth about that truck. I know the scratch on that door handle in Hutchins was real. I know the woman on exit 112 was standing in 18-degree weather without a car anywhere in sight. Some things out on the long road at night just don't have clean answers. Most of the time, the right move is to keep driving. Keep your doors locked. Keep your eyes forward. Most of the time.